Good morning, everyone. This is Shauna, and this is the seventh installment of the Bob and Nikki series review. If you've been following along, you know that in the last installment, Bob was looking for a ship that he and the crew thought had ties to ancient galactic civilization. And in this book, they do more with that ship. They had found it at the end of book six. They had christened it the Gene Cernan. And this installment gives us a little more about Gene and a lot more about the military bots and about the Navy. We get an important piece of information in this installment about the Galactic Navy. So let me show you the cover at this time. This is the cover of the Kindle book. This is part of Jerry Boyd's series. This is still part of his 2019 installments. So he was really busy in 2019. He wrote a lot of installments of the series, whether they were written before that and just published. But this is the seventh installment, and we're still in the um, the 2019 installments of the novels. But um, we find out in this installment that the galactic civilization had a navy, and they were exploring the universe. They were looking for signs of intelligent life. They had all these bots that they had outfitted for combat, for medical reasons, for all of the reasons that you would need um, security in a new place, all of that. And they never found it. So what they did was they mothballed the Navy and they left the bots dormant. So Bob and his team have inadvertently kind of stumbled on this motherlode of bots and this whole um, sort of powder keg for them, because if the galactic headquarters discovers that they've found this ancient ship and this sort of ancient ties to their civilization from 3,000, 4,000 years ago, it could really have political implications for Bob and his group. So they're trying to keep it quiet. Meanwhile, the planet that they have made their way to has a native population of large carnivorous animals. Think Jurassic Park. It very much reminded me of a Jurassic Park kind of scenario. And when the book opens, Bob and the team are busy sort of rescuing the native population from an attack of these creatures. And you see one of them on the cover. Um, there are smaller ones as well, but they tend to grow big and they tend to be hungry and they prey on the townspeople. So they do considerable work sort of cleaning that up, but the plot thickens because they start getting people off the planet, and there's a lot of belligerent pirate types. So what had happened was there were two factions on the planet. One was a group of uh, pirates who wanted to sort of take over from the native population and assert themselves, and the other group was a group that wanted to um, stay and kind of make life out of that. And then some people wanted to leave. Well, if you remember Zoom from the previous book, the one that Bob shot in the behind, when he found her ship, and he was really impressed because she had built the ship on junk and hope. It turns out Zoom was one of those former pirate types. And so they wanted to go back. They find a group of people stranded that want to go back to the planet, but they can't. And so Bob tries to get them back, but there's all sorts of situations that happen that involve the creatures, and that also involve a lot of conflict with the native government there. And so Bob is trying to work that out. Also, on the other front, in terms of learning more about the Galactic Navy, we have many more additional bots, some of whom actually get names in this installment, but we have hundreds of bots that they find, not only aboard the Gene, but also aboard some of the other ships. And there's some bots that are groundside on the planet. So Bob's finding out that there's a whole complement. So now we go from a primarily human crew in the first few books to a primarily robot crew with human supports, and the bots are doing more around the ships and trying to figure out what's going on. So this has sort of shifted the series. It's not so much the homespun, comfortable kind of build the cars and have fun and hang out and have the occasional madcap adventure. Now this is turning into a more action thriller type scenario where you have pirate rescues and you have bounty, which we had bounties before, but now we're talking about a growing fleet of ships. We're talking about a growing navy. So some of the bots, Sally, who was a teacher bot in the last book, Bob met her in the last book. She had been a teacher bot. Turns out prior to that, she had been an assistant to the captain and an adjutant in the Navy. So she has a whole series of memories that she unlocks. Bob also finds a small team of Marines. He unlocks them. So there's a military presence, which is very much needed for this sort of unruly planet with these animals. And then the people are very belligerent too. So we have a couple of more dependents that come on in the book. We have Nunya, who is a dependent of Zoom, who we met at the end of book 6. But Nunya is starting to play a little bit more of a role. And then we get a girl named Millis and a girl named Janelle from the planet. So Bob gives them the names Millie and Janet, respectively. And we have them coming up from the planet, as well as Millie's grandma, who's a firecracker of a character. And we find out that there's an atmospheric trait that makes the creatures grow larger. They release a lot of steroids, and the amount of steroids in the air makes the humans much more aggressive and much more belligerent. So we have that subline. But this installment, as I said, focuses on it becomes kind of a more logistical military type operation. So there's a shift in the tone of the books, and Bob is learning how to be captain of a ship in space. He's learning how to do that. So it's a shift in the tone, but it's enjoyable. But if you like a more um, spaced in fantasy, that this part of the series will be more for you. Of course, Topper and the boys are still around, but we get a lot more military details in here, and we add also um, some more ships, and we add another crewman from a derelict ship that Bob rescues. We add a man named Diego Cachi and some of his crew. So we're going to be following them in book 8. What I really like about this installment is you really get to see the inner workings of the bots, and you get to see what the bots can actually do in terms of military. And you've got, for the first time in these books, we have another sort of ethical crossing point where some of the bots who were mothballed from the Navy, obviously they had combat training, and obviously they could do harm to humans. They could even kill humans. And there's a lot of bots on the gene and elsewhere that don't have that programming. So now you have both types of bots, and you have those kinds of things being brought up. Is that ethical? Do we need to put limiters on them? Are we afraid of them being hurt? And Bob has a very key comment. I think it's Millie who makes a comment. Millie or Nunya. It might be Nunya actually. And she says when she first meets them, like, aren't you afraid that they'll hurt you? And Bob says, well, they're my friends. Why would I be afraid of my friend? Um, and so Bob is very much into treating the bots as his coworkers, as his equals. And so they return that, and there's no danger, even though you've got bots being shot at and getting into things. And you also see how Bob treats the bots. Like when there's an altercation with somebody on the planet, and one of the bots suffers some damage, and the engineer goes in and says, okay, well, I fixed you up enough so you can walk, but go down to engineering and get fixed up the rest of the way. And one of the other bots comes to Bob and says, thank you for caring about the life of our bots. Nobody has ever done that. So you start to see how all of these characters, mechanical and organic, or you're going to hear them referred to as organic. Right now, I think they're referred to as just human, but you're going to hear them referred to as organic in later books. And I think that that's very telling, and that's also a very understated point right now, but it'll become more obvious in the book about AI and how to relate to AI and how to think about AI in the future. That's about all I have for this installment of Captain Caveman, Jerry Boyd's Bob and Nikki series, Book 7. Join me next week, Lord willing, for Book 8, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.